Alright, I hope you enjoyed the comparison video between the NES and the Game Boy. As I said, I grew up playing the Game Boy version and recently acquired the NES version and wanted to compare them because I felt that they were very similar. This video is more or less just my takeaway from it, the whole experience. Basically, the games are, I think, very well designed in terms of if you could say the Game Boy was the port of the NES version, but it carried over a lot of features very well. I think they got a lot of levels, even though they were shorter, and in fact they cut out a lot of the levels from the NES version. It still felt like a really complete game, and in fact I prefer playing the Game Boy version for its gameplay. Some of the things they did cut out, which definitely took away from the experience, were those story cutscenes, a lot of the text explaining what he was doing. But, in these types of games, you know that you're always going after to rescue somebody, and in fact it was Felix's girlfriend. So one of the things I also like about the game, the different kinds of forms your character can take, and was one of the things that you would always look forward to when playing these types of games. When you are given a character that can take on many forms, you want to see all the different forms, you want to know which one's the best. Particularly in this game, you always know that you want to get upgraded to the max form, because not only does it make you more powerful in terms of your attack, but it also adds HP. You can always tell how many hits you have just based on the transformation your character currently takes on. For instance, just in the first level, you start off walking around and you have a punching glove, or to me it looks like one of those spring gloves that comes out, and there's one of those boxing gloves at the end, and then after that you get the top hat and the cane, and the star spring out and attack in like a circular pattern, so you know that if you get hit in that form, you go back to the first form, and so on. As you upgrade, you get another hit point. But also it affects how you attack and affects the strength of your attacks. So it was really cool seeing that there were different levels that try to vary up the gameplay. There would be those walking stages, and then there would be flying stages, and then there would be swimming stages, and even swimming under the water, but then there would be ones that were on the surface of the water, where there really were only I think 2 or 3 forms where Felix would be in a raft, and if you weren't doing anything, the idle animation for your character would just be him relaxing in his raft, catching some Z's. And the next form was, I think, a dolphin, but I think there was a turtle, but I think that might have also been under the water. Either way, they tried to kind of vary up the different levels, that was another thing that I think made the game more interesting to play. In terms of the levels and the length, I mentioned before how the NES had more levels, and they cut out a bunch, and even some bosses. I think maybe one boss in the Game Boy version. But I don't think that's a negative, because, like I said, growing up with the Game Boy version, it was kind of simple to beat and get through and just kind of relax. But for the NES version, it kind of felt like it was dragging, and I only realized afterwards that it had more levels when I had to cut out or put the little waiting sign on the Game Boy side of the gameplay video. It just felt like the NES side kind of dragged, and there were some story bits and story elements, those cutscenes basically, they had cut out in the Game Boy version. So the game tends to be longer, and I'm not sure how much the game was released for back in the day, but it probably would have been around $40 or $50, and the Game Boy version was like $30 probably. I think I paid $25 or $30 when it came out. And that was actually a really hard game to find. I remember calling everywhere for it there's a magazine, well, a lot of the game magazines, including the one I was thinking of right now, called Tips and Tricks. And in the back, they would have a lot of different game stores all over the U.S. And I would call them and ask them if they had this game. But yeah, eventually I found the game, and you know, it was like I said, it was very hard to get compared to most games, and its value now is a lot more. Beyond all that, one of the things I also wanted to say about the game was it really did a good job on like presentation in terms of the graphics, the animation, and the sound. Obviously, being limited with the hardware, the NES and the Game Boy, it still managed to offer some interesting animations. You know, like I said, they included idle animations for all the different transformations, all the different modes. There were at least 9 different transformations, and each one had their own idle and attack. In terms of sound, it always seemed to be very cheery and upbeat, just like a cartoon would be. It did a good job representing the character and the source material. Even though I liked Felix the Cat for, I don't know, since I was really young, the one version of Felix the Cat that I think I liked the most is like the mid-90s version, which was actually released after this game. And it was, that Felix the Cat came out in like 1995. It was based on a cartoon series on ABC called, I'm probably getting it wrong, probably was on CBS. Either way, it was called Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat, and that cartoon, to me, was one of my favorites. Still is, just because I feel like I can sit down and watch any single episode and not really have to know any backstory. I can just jump in and see what the crazy world of, you know, Felix the Cat lives in. So I love those kinds of cartoons. These days, you know, they have Adventure Time, and that is very much in the same vein. You're not really sure what's going to happen in each episode. If you are interested in that kind of show, like Adventure Time, I recommend you check out Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat, and they have, I think, one release on DVD. It might be out of print. I have it. It's like 8 episodes or something like that. But then, you know, I think they're got to be up on YouTube. One thing I also wanted to mention before bringing this video to a close was the sound. Playing the game, especially on the Game Boy, I noticed that the sound was very similar, or the music was very similar to another Game Boy game I used to have when I was really young, called Mickey Mouse's, or just probably just Mickey's Dangerous Chase, and it's a platformer made by Capcom. The game was, like I said, the music is very similar to the Felix the Cat on the Game Boy. And doing a little bit of research behind it, I found out that the composer for the Game Boy game was called Keiji Sakata, sometimes known as Nobi Sakata or just Nobi. And but I didn't find any mention of him composing the music to the Game Boy version. And I looked on Moby Games to find this information, mobygames.com. It shows who worked on what game or how many games they worked on, what, you know, developer studios. It's like, to me, it's a much better reference than Wikipedia, because Wikipedia has a lot of story and paragraphs and paragraphs of information where you might just want to find all the games that this particular person was involved in. And it can be any person on the team. You know, a single programmer. It doesn't have to be, you know, Will Wright or Shigeru Miyamoto or somebody, you know, it just can be any person who worked on it. I don't know if someone did not add the information for Felix the Cat, but I feel like the instruments that were being used and the type, if you hear the music, like you match them, put them side by side, they sound very similar. So if anybody knows that information, be sure to hit me up. I'd really like some confirmation on that. Really harken back to a game I used to play a lot, be frustrated a lot by when I was younger. So I'm going to put up probably more just little takeaways or, you know, just brief looking at of games I pick up. You know, this is maybe my second or third video, but I feel like I really enjoy talking about these games. So I'm going to just try to put up more so that you can enjoy them. So have a good day.